U.S. President Donald Trump says Washington will pass on Ukraine if efforts to end the war don't yield positive results soon.
Iran and the United States started a second round of nuclear talks in Rome on Saturday. The talks are mediated by Oman.
A trial of almost 200 people, mostly students, opened in Istanbul. They're accused of partaking in banned anti-government protests following Imamoglu's arrest. U.S. President Donald Trump says that Washington may have to, quote, take a pass on Ukraine as he shares that ceasefire negotiations are coming to a head. His remarks came after U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio warned on Friday that the U.S. may have to move on from ceasefire efforts if no progress is made in the coming days. Trump called any party that decides to make negotiations difficult fools, but reiterated his desire to see things through. The 47th U.S. president says that he's hopeful his administration's efforts will yield positive results. He insisted that he does not feel like he's being played by either party, particularly Russia, and believes there's a genuine enthusiasm for peace on both ends. Trump stopped short of fully committing to Washington's permanent backing out. Questioned by reporters in the Oval Office on whether the U.S. is prepared to completely withdraw from its initiative to end the war, Trump said, "I don't want to say that," adding that he wants to see an end to the fighting. The U.S. president also declined to share Washington's policy towards Ukraine in the event that a deal is not reached.
Iran and the United States have concluded a second round of negotiations in Rome on Saturday over Tehran's nuclear program. There is no immediate conclusion on how the negotiations mediated by Oman went, but the two nations agreed to hold another round of talks next week. The closed-door negotiations were led by Steve Witkoff, the Mideast envoy of U.S. President Donald Trump, and Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. The talks represented a historic moment given the tense relationship between the two countries. The Iran nuclear agreement had been a landmark deal reached between Iran and 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council in 2015. However, in 2018, Donald Trump withdrew the United States from the deal during his first term. Despite former U.S. President Joe Biden's efforts to restore the deal, the two countries have been so far unsuccessful in reaching a compromise.
Almost 200 people appeared in court as Turkey launched a trial over Istanbul protests. A total of 189 defendants, mostly students, were accused of participating in banned demonstrations and disobeying police orders to disperse. The protests were sparked after Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu was detained on the 19th of March and jailed days later on charges of corruption. Many view his arrest as politically motivated, as İmamoğlu is widely believed to be the biggest challenger to President Erdogan in the 2028 election. The government denies these claims, insisting that the judiciary is independent and that courts operate freely. Among the defendants were 7 journalists who were arrested while reporting on the protests. The defendants are among the more than 2,000 people who were arrested for taking part in the country's largest mass demonstrations in over a decade. Hundreds gathered outside the court demanding the acquittal of all defendants, who they say were exercising their constitutional rights.
As Holy Week celebrations continue, Christians around the world held processions on Good Friday to commemorate the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Some traditional processions see people carrying crosses or even reenacting the crucifixion, as is done in parts of the Philippines. In Mexico, Catholics in the town of Taxco carried large bundles of thorny branches as they walked barefoot, and some flagellated themselves to emulate the suffering of Jesus carrying the cross. In Jerusalem, worshippers walked along the Via Dolorosa, where tradition says Jesus took his final steps as he carried the cross to his crucifixion. In the Spanish village of Calanda, over 1,000 people have gathered around the local church with drums, producing rhythms that will last 26 hours without pauses. Holy Week culminates on Sunday with the celebration of Easter.